All right, there we go. We got 2 of them cut. These are going to go right here and right here. And these are just so you can fasten this down to the kayak. Now, easy peasy, we're gonna punch a hole in these angles. The size nuts that or bolts that I have for that are 1/4 by 20. 1/4 inch by 20 threads per inch. That's what that means. These are stainless so that they won't rust. They're a little bit more expensive, but it's worth it. Where you put your holes is up to you. I'm gonna go 1.5 inches from the end. And since it's 3/4, we're gonna go 3/8 from either side. So we're gonna center it up. And then I'll do the other one off camera and we'll go from there. But another thing you can do is you can punch your holes in this end too, and that's probably not a bad idea. Put your holes in so that you have somewhere to mark once you set it down. But we're gonna try and center this up a little bit. I should find a Sharpie. All right, so we got our Sharpie, a black Sharpie. No, it's a purple Sharpie. So I don't know if you can see, those holes land right on this rib here. And in some places, if you put it up, it lands right in the middle. So we're gonna flush it up, try and miss as much of that stuff as possible. I was just thinking if I set it below that rib, it might actually work out better, because then I can tighten it down a little bit better. So here's a little trick for you. We're gonna take this guy, we're gonna drop our, now notice we've only drilled 1 hole. That's by design. We're gonna put 1 bolt in. Come on. And put 1 of the bolts in and cinch it down pretty good. Not so tight that you can't turn it. Then that way you can line up where you want your other hole. And there you go. So now, take this out. Then on the other side, uh-oh. It looks like I need to shave a little bit off of this one. I didn't punch holes in it yet. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and shave off a little bit of this. I'll be right back with you. Okay, so now I'm back. I shaved a couple of holes in there. All right, I'm just going to feed our bolt through, get it started so it doesn't go anywhere. So these bolts, or these screws, they have a number 3 Phillips on them. All right, so I cinched it down just enough to get it in there. I'm gonna grab another bolt, another nut to go on there, and just like that, our holes line up. Okay, so there you go. You got your angle on there. Now, you can punch your holes in now for attaching it, or you can do it before you do that. One thing I would suggest is, if you can see, I don't know if you can see that underneath, how far these bolts stick out. Let's look through here. Does that look better? How far these bolts stick out? You can go with shorter bolts, just as long as they're wide enough to go through your material and through both pieces of material. The other thing is when you're putting in these, when you're putting in the holes to mount it to the kayak, don't put them in the same spot because you won't be able to get past them. I would go, you know, half an inch past that to one side or the other of that so that you've got enough room. So now we've got those holes cut in there. Should have enough room. Let's take a look with our nuts or our bolts. All right, so these are going to drop through, and they got plenty of room. They're not impeded by the nut next to it. And same with the back side, same deal. Make sure it fits just right, and it fits perfect. All right, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to try and locate those holes on the kayak. In the meantime, before we get to that, I'm going to go ahead and attach my other rail to this side. And when I come back, we'll be ready to start looking at attaching it to the kayak. Okay, we're back over at the kayak. So next step to this is to find your position. We're going to work on attaching this to our kayak now. Now there's a couple of different ways you can go about this. Try and always use stainless steel hardware for this. You don't want it rusting. It's going to be exposed to water. So what I've got here are these big long 1/4 by 20. These big long 1/4 by 20 Phillips head bolts. I've got some fender washers that are 1/4 inch. These should pass through. This quite nicely. See how that works? It goes through there. And then at the same time, I bought, these are Teflon lock nuts. Now these things you're only going to get a couple of turns before it gets really tough to put on. And then as you tighten it down, those threads cut into that little piece of Teflon down there and lock it on so it can't go anywhere. Now, that's one way of attaching it, if you can get to the back side. We're going to set all of this stuff aside, put these all back in. Now the problem I'm having, I can't get to the back side. I toyed around with the idea of using these. These are called well nuts. How these work is it's got a little threaded bit on the inside. You drill a hole that's just big enough. You don't want to go too loose, because if this spins in here, you're never going to get a good seal. So how this works is you drill a hole that's just big enough for this well nut to slide down into there. You want it tight, 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 tight. If you have to cram it in or hammer it in with a a light hammer, that's what you want. Okay, you don't want this thing spinning. And then this gets threaded in, and you drop it in from this end. And as you start tightening this up, it pulls this end towards here, smushing this rubber. There's just a rubber gasket around there. So as you start tightening this down, this starts to squish in on itself. I don't know if you've ever seen riv nuts. They do the same thing, except you don't use the nut to set it. You actually have to have a special tool to get it to set. But I think this is the route that I'm going to have to go. I'm going to mess around with it a little bit and toy around with it, see if I can get in there. The problem is if this hatch was bigger, I'd have no problem, right? But I can't quite get there. I might be able to get there for the front ones, but the back ones I'm never going to get there. And trying to fit a washer and a nut on the back side, that's going to prove to be a little difficult. So I might go try to find a small wrench to fit those nuts, and we're going to give that a try. But first off, let's take a look at locating our holes. So before we start drilling holes, we want to make sure that we get it all buttoned down, perfect, centered. This is where it's critical, because if you mount your seat like that, you're going to be leaning to the right in your boat. If you get it set up over here, it's going to be leaning. So you want to have it's centered. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. Now, because I have an odd shape to my cockpit, and it slides around pretty well, I'm going to find one location on this thing, on the crate itself. I don't know if you can see that. Let's move you a little bit closer. Can't get you real close. But these have a grid on the bottom. I'm going to pick this hole and just mark it so I know what I'm looking at. Then I'm going to find something else on the kayak, something that's the same on both sides. Okay. I've got a cat over here trying to get up on the kayak. He thinks he's cute. Anyway, so I'm going to find something that's stationary, something I can get to. If you can see this screw here on the thing, I'm going to use the very dead center of that as my reference point. Now, you could just pop the end of your tape in there and measure it out. I like to put the number 1 inch right to the dead center, and we look like we're 14,850. Now go to the other side, the same spot, 14,850. So right there, right where it landed is perfect. Now you don't want to be moving this thing around. Get in there with your Sharpie. It might not show up on this black very well, but we'll find out. So we'll pull this out. Well, we got the back ones marked. That's a plus. So I think what we're going to do is, because I can just about reach where the front holes are going to be, so we're going to use the well nuts on the back side. Now, these well nuts, like I said before, you want to be as tight as possible with these. So we're going to measure them. These are a 1/2 inch hole. So I'm going to look for my drill bits. I'm going to find the one that's just slightly smaller than a 1/2 an inch. Oh, let's see. We got... Where did that one go? All right, so could go 31/64. Let's try and go down to, looks like 15/32 is what we're going to try. Now, before you start drilling holes in your kayak, we're going to do a test fit on a piece of the HDPE that you cut off from. Now, your well nuts might be different than my well nuts, so make sure that you measure. I would hate to have somebody put the wrong size hole in and not be able to use that well nut. That's my 1/4 inch bit. I'll put that guy away later. And we're going to come down here to our workbench again. Find a good flat spot. You don't have to worry about the ribs on the other side. Okay. Just clean the burrs off of it. And take your well nut. Can I get it in there? Yep. Okay, so that's the drill bit I'm going for. Pop that guy out of there. Nice, tight fit. That's what we want. Just a recommendation. You see how big your holes are here? Or how small your marks are? Give yourself a starting pilot hole. Something nice and tiny, like that guy. Boy, you're not even turned towards the kayak anymore. There we go. That's probably better. So we're going to take this much smaller drill bit. Go slow. The hull is only, I don't know, 3-4 inches here, so you don't want to punch through both sides. There. We got one. And we punched right through. We don't want to go all the way through into the bottom of the kayak, because then, you know, you'll drown. So put our bigger drill bit in, the one that we decided was the right size for our well nuts. See how it grabs like that? You gotta be careful. Okay. There. Now we got our first ones up. This is where it gets a little tricky here. I'm gonna pop one well nut down, pop the other well nut down. Now the reason that I'm okay with using well nuts on the back and not on the front is because as you're leaning back in your seat, all that pressure to pull out is going to be on the front of this. All right, one down, one to go. There we go. So now if you can see, we've got the well nuts in here. Now they just look like little rubber pieces. Once you put your screws in, they'll fit nicely. So now you can put your screw in there and it'll hold. So what we're going to do, and we're going to set this guy aside for a moment. All right, so we've got that taken care of. Get our number 3 bit, pop that into our, now here, I don't want to use my impact. I'm going to use this guy, and I told you I'd talk to you about this here. So these numbers on your drill, they're a clutch, so that you don't over tighten it. If you're still afraid of doing that, use a hand tightening screwdriver. So see, when it reaches the right amount of tension, it pops so it can't go any farther. You can set it as low or as high as you want. Number 1 is the lowest. You go all the way up to the highest number on your drill. It takes a little bit more to get it to go. So I'm going to come down to about a 3. I really don't want to over tighten it. And that goes the same for tightening on handles, eyelets, or pad eyes, or anything really that you're going into the plastic. Or if you're putting up cabinetry or something like that, use the clutch on there. It'll save you a whole lot of time. And you can always start low. Start at 3 like I am. And if it's not quite tight enough, you can step it up. You can make it tighter. But start low and go from there. So I'm going to figure out, that's the way that goes. So we're going to go ahead and thread this in to our angle. Can you see what we're doing here? Thread this into the angle. See how it starts to get tight? Because that well nut is starting to mush just the way we want it to. Now these are, like I said, these are our mounting brackets for mounting our seat. So drop it down into there and start giving it a turn. See how it's popping that clutch? That's what we want. Now we'll come back in, we'll tighten these up again in a little bit. Now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take our seat riser, pop it back on, line up the holes. One. All right, so the reason why we're doing it that is so that we can locate our next holes. So right now I'll be right back. I'm going to go grab a small wrench for my lock nuts and a little bit of super glue, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do. Okay, we're back. Now to mark these next holes, we're going to take our 1/4 inch drill bit. My marker doesn't fit quite down in there. If your marker can fit down that hole and mark it, and you can mark, if you can see the mark, great. If not, this is a little trick. Take your 1/4 inch drill bit that fits your hole, stick it down in there, give it a little turn, kind of scratch up the surface a little bit. Did that work? Sure did. Go to the other side and do the same thing. Now if you wallet out your holes a little bit, that'll be easier. Now we're going to pop out our little locator pins here. Well, that went right through the scupper hole down to the bottom. That's all right. It's fine. Now we can take that and set it aside. Now you don't have to take your well nuts out. So, got everything in place. Now, I went and found a socket. These nuts happen to be 7/16, a little breaker bar. I should be able to reach now, but you want to get that washer to stay on, because you want the washer on there, because you don't want just this holding you in. You want the washer is there to spread everything out. So what we're going to do, take a little bit of super glue here, if this super glue still works, and you want to just put a little bit on the edges of your nut, line up the holes. It sticks to your skin awful fast, but it doesn't stick to your, it doesn't stick to the metal right away. And what this is going to do, it's going to secure this to your nut. It should. Let's set it down on the workbench here for a couple of minutes. See if that holds. We're going to do it twice. Alright, so our little nut washer combos have cured. It only took, I don't know, 30 seconds or so once you got it on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this directly into the socket. And we're going to try to feed in. If I get in the way, I'm sorry. But this is going to be tricky because you can't see what you're doing. But if you look through your little hole there, you can see where it lines up. And once you get it in, you can take your drill and we're going to set it kind of loose. We can always tighten it up if we want to. So that goes on like that. I'm going to go around to the other side and do the same thing, but that way maybe you can see what I'm looking at here. Don't forget the nut with the washer. Okay. So once again, we've got our socket that fits our nut. We've got our washer glued to the nut so it sits right in there. Our hole is here. So if you get this guy down in here, you can reach up here. And once you get it up to the hole, you can see it line up. The only other thing to do is to tighten down these guys. Remember, we're set at 5. And it locks it in. Alright, nice and tight. So, once we get those backed out a little bit, then we can start getting these things lined up. Now, I was going from the outside in, but I think it's going to be easier to go that direction. The reason being I can get my drill in here. To cinch those down. But before we cinch anything down, we're going to get all 4 of these in. Washers. I don't think that's going anywhere. Now, to tighten everything against tighten everything in as far as those brackets go. We're going to go back to our Ugga Dugga. This one, you're not going into the hull of the kayak, so I wouldn't worry too much about pulling it through. Let's get you a little bit closer. Can you see what I'm doing here? So the first thing is these nuts you want to secure down with a wrench and go from the inside with your impact. You can use just your regular drill if you like. I'm going with the impact, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it for both sides, and there we go, all done, set up just like so. And let's throw the seat on and see how that looks. So first things first, feed my clip through the back. I'll loosen this guy off just a little bit. All right, and that is a wrap. You can loosen these up a little bit, give us a little bit, but I think it's gonna hold us. Won't really know until we get it out on the water and, you know, screw it all up. But this way, my butt's not sitting right on top of those stuffer holes. And my large Plano boxes from my tackle box fit right in there. I don't have a second one on me right at the moment to throw up on top, but a second one will fit. And I got tackle storage right underneath my butt, which is nice because I can't get a crate to fit directly in. It won't fit in there. I'm going to work on that next time. So there you go. Seat mod. Yeah, it raised me up, I want to say 4 or 5 inches. I don't know where my tape went. But it raised the seat up about 4 or 5 inches, gives me a little bit of room. It gives me the option to change out this seat. I have my eye on a different stadium seat from Walmart. But this should get us where we want to be for now. We won't know how it works out until we get it out on the water, but that's it. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you care to. Really kind of helps us out. And yeah, have a great day. Talk to you later.